Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi. Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Well, joining us now about all the big news of the day, how do you beat that, is Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, any comments on the Nathan's hot dogs or Gloria Gaynor before we get to the tariffs?
I want kosher hot dogs, Hebrew National, little mustard. You know, we used to sing that song when we were kids, you know, pickle in the middle and the mustard on top. As long as it's good and hot. Look, let me get to the Supreme Court. Don't blame the Supreme Court. Blame Trump's lawyers. They made a mistake. I predicted on this show when the argument was first had, it was going to lose because they focused on the statutes. When you focused on statutes, that admits that the legislature has the authority. They should have focused on the Constitution. Article 2 of the Constitution gives the president the power to conduct foreign policy, to prevent wars, to do diplomacy, and Trump has been using tariffs for that purpose as well as to raise revenue. On the raise revenue thing, Congress is always going to win. But when it comes to saying, look, as he said today, we prevented a war in Pakistan between Pakistan and India by threatening sanctions on both. That's a presidential power that Congress has no authority over. So they made the wrong argument, and it's not too late. They can come back now and say, look at what happened in Pakistan and India. Look at what's going on in Iran. We're trying to prevent a war. I hope they don't. I hope there is a regime change. But I'm talking about what the president could say. We're trying to prevent a war by imposing sanctions. You could change the name. Don't call it a tariff. Call it a sanction. Call it a punishment. Call it whatever you want. It's the same thing. And the president has the authority to use financial penalties and to use things that traditionally are called tariffs but can be called something else in order to influence foreign policy, diplomacy, and military policy. That's the big mistake the administration and the lawyers made.
So where does it go from here for our listeners from a layman's perspective? Where does it go from here? Is there anything legally? Obviously he already came out within minutes and said he's going to do this 10% across the board. Where do you see it going legally?
Look, the president is smarter than the Supreme Court justices and most of the legislatures on this. He understood this immediately. What he said was, I'll do it in a different way. I'll do it by a different name. And that's what he's going to do. What he's told his people tonight is, I want you to stay up all night, and I want you to figure out ways of doing the same thing without running afoul of the power of Congress to control revenue raising. The whole Article 1 gives Congress the power to raise revenues. If it's about raising revenues, about taxes, and of course the Chief Justice thinks everything's a tax, and he thought this was a tax. And if it's a tax, of course the legislature is always going to prevail. But the president has to say this is not just a tax. This is me implementing the foreign policy of the United States. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to see much of the same with different names, different concepts under different rubrics, and the president is going to prevail on this one way or another. He's going to prevail.
Professor Dershowitz, what did you think of the split? It was Alito Kavanaugh and Thomas, in the dissent, who voted, for the president, but dissent in the decision. So what did you think of the split? Because Amy Coney Barrett, obviously Gorsuch, the Chief Justice, obviously the others on the other side. What did you make of how it ended up 6-3?
Well, I was only wrong about the one pair of votes. I predicted the split, but I predicted wrongly that Gorsuch would be in dissent and Kavanaugh would be in the majority, but that didn't happen. But beyond that, it was entirely predictable that the Chief Justice would join the liberals and call it a tax, and it was, to me, completely predictable that Professor Conan Barrett, who is a law professor, would do the same thing. And I would have done the same thing if I were on the Supreme Court based on the argument that the lawyers made. Of course, this doesn't fit neatly into the emergency legislative allocation of power to the president. No, I agree with Judge Weinberg. The court made the right decision based on the arguments that were presented to it, but the lawyers made the wrong arguments, and I think they can undo those now, and I think the legal team today is working on trying to undo that, to give the president authority, not under the statute, but under Article 2 of the Constitution that starts by saying the executive power of the United States is in the hands of the president, and the executive power includes the power to impose restrictions on how goods are sold to America in order to effectuate foreign policy, military policy, and diplomacy. So I don't think this is going to be such a big deal. The other thing that worries me deeply is a number of commentators, and they're not always so smart about this, is saying, this restricts the president's power to go to war against Iran. No, it doesn't. The rule can't be that Democratic presidents don't need congressional authority. Kennedy didn't need it. Johnson didn't need it. Roosevelt didn't need it.
If you're a Republican, you need authority. Let's put it down in the Constitution.
It's only if you're Republicans.
Alan Dershowitz, thank you so much for everything you do and everything your common sense you have.
Too.
We love you.
Go Staten Island baseball.
Go
Yay! They will survive.
Hebrew National hot dogs.
We will survive. We will. Hebrew National hot dogs and Nathan's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.